This lesson is critical task training for civilian employees. Critical task training is a required session for all personnel employed by the Dalton Police Department, and it's to be attended annually. As employees of a law enforcement agency, there are several high liability topics that need to be covered on a regular basis. The topics we'll cover in this lesson are employee domestic violence situations, off-duty action and conduct, sexual harassment and discrimination, and citizen complaints. The terminal performance objective for this lesson is while employed with the City of Dalton Police Department as a civilian employee, the employee will be able to identify the critical topics that are essential to safely and effectively perform their official duties. Our enabling objectives are to identify the correct way to handle a domestic violence situation involving an employee of the Dalton Police Department. We're going to discuss the appropriate way to handle a situation when off duty and what action, if any, should be taken. Discuss how citizen complaints and internal investigations are handled within the Dalton Police Department, and also discuss the City of Dalton's sexual harassment policy. The first thing we're going to talk about is domestic violence. Before we get into the procedures as far as handling a situation, whether it be with an employee, coworker, something like that, let's talk about family violence in general. By Georgia law, family violence is defined as the occurrence of one of the following acts between past and present spouses, parents and children, step-parents, stepchildren, foster parents, foster children, or other persons living or formerly living in the same household. It would be any felony or the commission of the offenses of battery, assault, criminal damage to property, unlawful restraint, or criminal trespass. As unfortunate as it is, domestic violence or family violence situations are common calls that law enforcement officers respond to. Sometimes these situations may occur at one location and the victim or complainant may come into the police services center to make a report. So having a basic understanding of family violence in general will help you be able to assist these victims a lot better. The thing that we need to be concerned with is if the victim or aggressor is a Dalton Police Department employee. Say it's a coworker that you work with in maybe records, or depending on where your assignment is inside the building. The thing that you need to understand is the procedures that the Dalton Police Department officers will go through when handling this situation. If it's within the city, and we are called there as the law enforcement agency to take care of the domestic or family violence situation, a supervisor and a second officer is going to respond to that call. Most importantly, we need to understand that there's not going to be any type of professional courtesy, special consideration, or special treatment made to the employee, whether they're the victim or the aggressor. So we're to provide unbiased law enforcement service to everyone. Therefore, we're not going to provide any kind of special courtesy or anything to that employee. Another thing that's important for you to understand is that if maybe you are assigned somewhere where you work close by someone, and here I'm talking about a domestic violence situation, maybe they're the victim, or maybe even they're the aggressor, and you overhear something. It's important to make sure that information gets directed to the appropriate person, whether it be the operations supervisor of support services, or if you're assigned to patrol, CID, administration, making sure that your immediate supervisor knows about that, and potentially can address the situation with that employee, especially if they're a victim of domestic violence. A lot of times people are afraid to say anything, and there are resources out there that are available for that person. If someone comes into the police services center and requests information about victim, witness, things like that, make sure you contact one of the patrol guys or give them a victim rights notification form. There's some good information on there. You can refer that person to victim witness with the district attorney's office. If they come in, or if they call in to the police services center and you talk to them and they're asking stuff about maybe the suspect or his family's calling and threatening them, make sure that information is documented by an officer. If you can have an officer go out and speak with that individual, talk to them on the phone, something like that. That way we can have a track record of all this stuff that's going on, and it could assist with the prosecution of that case. Provide information about what types of resources are available to that person, whether it be victim witness, the Women's Crisis Center, trying to help an individual out with that. Provide referral information for legal, social assistance, and support. And again, this is found on the Victim Rights Notification Form. If you have any questions about domestic violence situations and how they're handled, any of the patrol guys could help you, or CID, any of the sworn personnel that deals with domestic violence calls can probably give you a little more insight, or you can get with me down in training, and I'll be glad to assist you any way I can on that. The next topic we're going to talk about is off-duty action. This is probably one of the most important critical task topics that we talk about, because we spend a lot of time talking about ethics, and we spend a lot of time talking about off-duty action and stuff, because it's very important. We need to make sure that we are conducting ourselves in a manner that reflects the ethical standards consistent with the rules of the Dalton Police Department. It's very difficult to be one person on duty and be an entirely different person once you're away from here. A lot of times those, especially if it's doing anything that's kind of shady or kind of on the not always on the up and up. So you have to remember that even off duty, you are a reflection of this agency, and people are automatically going to hold you to a higher standard. I mean, think about the last time that you were around someone being introduced for the first time. I know with me personally, every time I'm around someone that I meet for the first time, and I'm introduced by, say, a friend, usually they give my name, and it doesn't take very long before they say he works for the Dalton Police Department. And I'm sure most of you have probably been involved in this, and even if you're not sworn, they still relate you to being a member of the Dalton Police Department and in public safety. And so we have to always kind of maintain a little bit of a higher standard and hold ourselves to a higher standard, because we're definitely held to that standard by the general public and by the community that we serve. By policy, we define off-duty as not assigned or working a prescribed shift or duty, further in the process of conducting personal business, leisure activities, or working for another person or business other than the police department. Again, you are always representing the agency. We have to keep in mind that there are several items or things that are prohibited from us doing off-duty. First of all, don't enter any establishment in which the law is regularly violated. I think without giving too many examples, you could probably come up with one or two places right off the bat that you could think of that you need to stay away from. If it's a location where, especially in our jurisdiction, where the law is constantly violated, there's going to be potentially people in there that you may see on a regular basis coming inside the lobby of the police department. And again, it may not may not make you presentable in the right way in the eyes of some people, and could have a negative impact on you. And plus, just kind of being around all that's definitely not going to be good for you. Knowingly join or participate in any organization that advocates, incites, or supports criminal acts or conspiracies. I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Avoid regular or continuous association or dealings with any individuals that have been convicted of a felony within the past 5 years. Served a term of incarceration for a felony within 5 years. A lot of times who you associate yourself with can obviously have some impact on your appearance, and also can lead to some negative images being portrayed of you. So again, when off duty, make sure you're trying to keep yourself out of those situations. When off duty, if you observe anything that's criminal activity, it's going to happen. There's going to be a situation to where you come up on a crime in progress or something that just happened. And the thing that you need to remember is do not identify yourself as a member of the Dalton Police Department. It kills me sometimes that I see people with blue line stickers on their car, for example, and basically, it just tells the world that that person is either in law enforcement or they have a family member in law enforcement. And what a lot of people don't seem to understand is that there are individuals out there that will target people just because they're police officers. And if you can not identify yourself as a member of the police department, things like that, remember you don't have powers of arrest. You're not equipped or trained to handle certain situations. So just sometimes being a good witness and reporting criminal activity to on-duty officers is the best thing for you to do. You read reports, you translate reports, or type those in the computer, so you know exactly what the officers are looking for and what type of information that they're getting on a regular basis. So you would probably be just as good of a witness, if not a better one, than a lot of sworn personnel. So some of the information that you may want to think about is the suspect or victim descriptions, what criminal activity you observed, and then any other pertinent information that may help the officer investigating that crime. The next topic that we'll talk about is complaints and internal investigations or internal affairs. This is how they're handled within the department. Citizen complaints. All citizen complaints pertaining to misconduct, policy violations, or violations of law will be documented and investigated. If approached, or if someone comes up to the window in records or whichever division you're assigned to and asks you about filing a complaint or the complaint procedures, you need to provide that individual with information explaining the complaint process and provide them with that complaint form. Internal complaints, if possible, they should be reported to the employee's immediate supervisor. If the supervisor is the person that's involved in the complaint, you may file that complaint with the appropriate division commander or with the chief of police. During a complaint, the supervisor has some responsibilities. They're going to try to resolve the complaint by exploration of departmental policies and procedures. Complaints that do not result in a formal complaint, we're going to classify those as inquiries. Any type of administrative internal investigation is required for criminal misconduct, unethical activity, negligence or neglect of duty resulting in bodily injury or death, abusive conduct by supervisor directed toward a subordinate, or excessive or improper use of force. So by policy, these are the areas that we're going to do an administrative internal investigation for. The division commander for whatever division receives the information is going to forward the original complaint and all documents, evidence, and information relating to the investigation to the Professional Standards Unit. Currently, Captain Phillips and Sergeant Dyer are the ones that investigate as the Professional Standards Unit. So if you're involved in a complaint or you're the subject of a complaint, then these are going to be Captain Phillips and Sergeant Dyer are going to be the ones contacting you with that information or requesting information from you. They have the primary supervisory responsibility for all complaints, and they're going to report everything directly to the Chief of Police on all complaints. The first step is they're going to send a memo to Chief Parker notifying him of the complaint, and then they're going to contact the complainant and advise them that the matter is under investigation. The employee that's subject to the complaint is going to be notified in writing that they are the subject of an administrative inquiry or investigation, and then within 20 days the investigation has to be complete unless an extension is granted by the Chief of Police. And then the Professional Standards Unit is going to submit any type of recommendations to the Chief of Police, and then ultimately Chief Parker will make that decision about any type of disciplinary action and things like that. During an investigation or a complaint, If it's a criminal investigation, Miranda rights will apply. Miranda rights are you have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You've all heard that said before. If it's an administrative violation, then your Garrity rights are going to be read to you, and you'll be notified of those. And basically, what your Garrity rights are saying that you must answer all questions truthfully. You can be required to answer all questions specifically, narrowly, and directly related to the performance of your official duties. Your refusal to comply with an order to answer such questions is a violation of departmental rules, which may result in the employee being disciplined up to and including dismissal. And then any required information that's self-incriminatory, admission made during the interview may only be used in a subsequent administrative proceeding and can't be used against the employee in a subsequent criminal proceeding. If it's anything that's relating to criminal activity, the criminal investigation is going to be conducted first, and then an administrative investigation will be conducted after the criminal investigation. The next topic we'll talk about is sexual harassment or sexual discrimination. Sexual harassment is defined as unwelcome words or behaviors such as unwelcome sexual advances, requests for sexual favors, and other verbal or physical conduct of a sexual nature. By city policy, it is harassment and discrimination of others is classified as serious employee misconduct, and both men and women are protected from sexual harassment. If you have a situation that you feel is sexual harassment or discrimination, there is a procedure to follow for complaints. Tell the person that his or her actions are unwelcome and offensive. Make sure you document all incidents of unlawful harassment to assist with the investigation, and then report the incident as soon as possible to your supervisor. You can report it to your immediate supervisor unless they are the ones that are involved, and if that's the case, you can report it to your division commander, chief of police, city of human resources director, or the city administrator. Just make sure this is done as soon as possible, and that way it can help with the investigation and potentially resolving the situation. In this lesson, we have talked about several different topics. We have identified the correct way to handle a domestic violence situation involving an employee of the Dalton Police Department. We've discussed the appropriate way to handle a situation when off duty and what action, if any, should be taken. We've discussed how citizen complaints and internal investigations are handled within the Dalton Police Department, and we've also discussed the City of Dalton's sexual harassment policy. If you have any additional questions about any of these topics, please feel free to get with me in the training division or with your immediate supervisor.